Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fintech Times. We are here at Sibos 2022 in wonderful Amsterdam and yes, coming to the end of day 2 now, and I'm joined today by Tricia Balfe of XMLdation. Tricia, how are you?
I'm very good and very happy to be here today. Happy to be at Sibos.
What have you made of day 2?
The floor space is enormous. It's been really busy, really hard to find people, but really energizing.
So, it is, isn't it? Yeah. So good energy here, I think.
Yeah.
We got some really interesting topics to discuss today, which I'm really excited about. But before we get going on that, we must give our viewers a little bit of an insight into who you are in case they haven't heard of XMLdation before. Okay. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, about your position in the company and what the company sets out to achieve?
Yeah. So I'm Tricia Balfe. I'm CEO of XMLdation. We are a Finnish-Irish hybrid of a company. And we sell to banks and to payment market infrastructure providers or central banks. We've been operating in this banking space for maybe over 10 years. We focus on testing and providing test solutions to banks and central banks, and we're specialists in financial messaging.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that very good introduction, Tricia. So yes, essentially you're a vendor to banks. It's very interesting. In terms of, I mean, you said that the company's been going for 10 years. In terms of what banks need right now in such a digitally heavy climate, what are the trends that you're seeing in terms of what banks are after?
Yeah. Well, so I think maybe I might say that sometimes it's what banks need as well as what banks are after. Yeah. So there are enormous trends outside of banking that banking has to accommodate. These are cloud and modern technology. So it may be emulating a little bit what the big tech companies do in terms of delivering services in a much more self-service and improved customer experience fashion. So so I think that banks can look to us as a small company who can bring cloud, who can bring agile processes, who can improve the whole customer experience for their clients, be they small corporates or even large banks that they're interacting with.
And do you think that decision from the banks is coming from the demands of their customers? Do you think it's coming from the saturation of the market? Do you think the current economic climate in mainly Europe, I guess, is pushing that forward?
I think that there's many things pushing things forward. I suppose digitalization, in a very general sense, is just the enormous trend that everything needs to move towards digitalization and automation, and that means that you have to adopt all sorts of new technologies and new approaches.
I think, every bank wants to be the best that they can be. Any business wants to be the best that they can be, and you've outlined some really, really great solutions that your company is offering these banks and their clients. But in terms of the adoption of these technologies, what could potentially be holding back the full-scale adoption of the cloud or some of the associated technologies that you mentioned?
Well, so there's always difficulties in adopting the new, So always things take time, and I think, for example, security is a huge concern. So in adopting new technologies, you always have to, and organisations like banks have to be very careful about what steps they take towards adoption. But I might mention actually that apart from this very big technology change, there's also some major trends that mean that banks and infrastructure providers have to adopt new technology. So that's the focus on real-time payments, the need for real-time payments, the demand for real-time payments. And also the industry has been it's migrating towards new financial messaging standards over the past probably 15, almost 20 years, and that migration to ISO 20022 is really moving at pace now, with enormous numbers of infrastructure providers and banks modernizing all of their systems so that they can integrate and ultimately provide better services to clients, and more robust processes for the whole payments industry. So it's exciting times.
And in terms of the ISO 222, as you mentioned, I mean, what would a perfect world where all of that be implemented look like?
I think frictionless, and what that means is that all of the parties, that all the banks, all of their clients who actually need to work with ISO 20022 understand it well, have all the tools available to them to make sure that they're using all of these messaging in the correct fashion.
You've given a really fascinating insight into the current landscape of payments, and especially in terms of how banks are reacting to the most current trends, as you outlined in your answer. Moving on sort of away from that, we must discuss one of the Fintech Times' most pressing issues, as in October we are celebrating all the wonderful things that women do in tech. Now, I think we're not here to go after anybody, but you go out onto Sibos and you see, being, in terms of the gender ratios, it is quite predominantly male, right? And so I think this is why we are spending an entire month celebrating all of these women and highlighting their careers. Being in, the position that you're in within XMLdation, it's a very interesting, must have been a very, very interesting career trajectory for you. Is this where you thought your career would end up?
It's certainly not where I thought my career would end up, but I think it's been a really interesting journey, and maybe if I talk about being a woman in the industry, it's my attitude as a woman has always been that you choose to do what it is you're interested in doing. You give things a chance. You take your opportunities, and you see how you go. And my experience has been, it can go quite well. You can compete very well in a male-dominated world. Of course, there are challenges, but I say to women, if you're interested in something, you take on the challenge. You give it a try.
You mentioned challenges just there. I mean, have there been any significant challenges in your career journey that you've had to work to overcome being a woman?
Well, I would say, I mentioned I work for a Finnish-Irish company. I have worked for companies in other geographies, and being a woman, I have a family. You have a lot of you have to manage your home life as well as your work life, and I would say that I would tend to have hidden part of my home life, right? It's quite interesting working within a Finnish organization, that they have a much more equal approach to men and women, and to home life and work, a very balanced approach to home life and work life. And I have really appreciated and approve of the way in which Finnish organizations address these sorts of problems. But I have certainly encountered and hidden some of the challenges when working in other markets.
I think I definitely agree with you that we should look to other models, especially in Finland, as you mentioned, where the gender roles have really worked quite well in terms of how they're represented in the industry. We have a lot of really big players like yourself at Sibos today. I mean, we have Leda Glyptis in tomorrow. We have these talks being led by lots of really, really great women. But then on the other end, we have what I perceive to be a few women that maybe are a bit on the fence about entering the financial industry, as big as it is. you mentioned in your first point a bit of advice that you would give to women, but is there anything that you would add to women who are maybe on the sort of like eve of their career, but weren't too sure if it was the right industry for them?
Well, for me, it's all about whether you appreciate and enjoy what the industry is about.
Yeah.
If you do, then you join in. But I think that there are many careers, many things to enjoy.
Fantastic. And our final question for you, Tricia, is you've come to Sibos all the way from Ireland, and there's a lot to do here and a lot of people to talk to. What is XMLdation looking to achieve from its time at Sibos this year?
To actually have face-to-face interaction with as many of our clients, our existing clients, but also our potential clients. So really, post-COVID, we really appreciate being able to have the human interaction once again.
Fantastic. Well, I could speak to you all day, Tricia, but unfortunately must wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope to catch up more in the rest of Sibos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.